born from the spark under red, white, and blue lights. Forge my own path, climbing these brand new heights. This ain't a debate, we setting the new standard. The voice of the free, a vision that's expanded. True Grimaldi Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this beautiful Saturday. We have a very, very special guest today. We have the great Dr. Rick Addante. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me here.
Hey, it's great to have you. So you have done some amazing things, throughout your career. So you had a lot of stuff with, you actually worked with NASA, studying the brain, the effects of the brain and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
That's amazing. So what did you find out? What type of things did you find happens when someone's in space or whatnot?
Wow, that's a good question. We found a lot of different things. So the missions that I was honored to be a part of was called the Hera mission and the Nemo mission. And so we studied astronauts living on Earth, but underneath the ocean. So about 100 feet down in the world's only undersea laboratory. It's off the Florida coast. One of the things we found there while they were living in what we call isolated, confined, and extreme environments is that they're exhausted. And they're exhausted for lots of reasons. And we want to study workload impacts on how does that change how we think, how we interact with our team, how we operate in these high pressure, high stakes environments. And we found basically that these conditions that they were living under, 5-hour surface applied air, which is essentially hard hat diving, akin to a moonwalk. But at the bottom of the ocean, there's sharks swimming around. They're exhausting. They're 20-hour days. So basically, we found that they were tapping the astronauts out in certain levels of fatigue, but not in the ways that you would think. So these are high-capable, high-functioning humans. They're obviously astronauts. They're
right,
the
amazing shape, put through crazy trials.
Yeah, and things we found at that mission was that it was the actual demands of the mission itself. That is to say, all of us experimenters, all of us scientists, were giving them so many things to do that was one of the contributing factors. How many tasks they had to do each day that added up to their slower responses, there's worse accuracy on these different cognitive measures. And that might sound a little bit trite at first, but it's a really important element, which is to unpack that a little bit about how NASA works. And these are generally taxpayer-funded missions to space on the ISS or not Artemis, and every moment is valuable time. And there's so many people that have paid so much money to get experiments up there to find out all sorts of things that they really tax these astronauts out historically and pack every moment of their day for obvious reasons, right? I mean, these are important missions, and you want to get the most out of every moment you can.
Absolutely.
And historically, NASA's kind of looked at them as, engineering, and didn't take into effect the human factors, which is that people get tired. They're not robots. They're not machines. And you do need to give some decompression time. And over the decades, NASA's gotten a lot better at that because they put so much on their plate that it actually creates a burden on top of the stressors that are already there in these high pressure, high stakes, life-threatening environments. And so one of the reasons that we thought that was very valuable to share back about this kind of exhaustion and the fatigue that we're seeing as being induced by the factors of the mission that we are adding as scientists and mission control support is because of what I did as a crew member in the Hera mission. So a few years prior to that, I was the only psychologist to ever be a crew member on NASA's largest psychology study for long-duration spaceflight. So we lived in a space capsule, but on the ground at Johnson Space Center for 45 days of isolation and confinement. Yeah, with 3 people that we just met, 2-3 weeks beforehand.
Right.
Now
and that's got to add some stress to it too,
Oh yeah. And absolutely. And that's kind of the thing is people always ask me this, so what did NASA do to stress you guys out? And I'm like, they didn't really have to do anything in that respect. They wanted to study what we know happens in any human interactions, but certainly space flight in these long duration environments, which is team breakdowns, individual breakdowns in our psychology, our mental states, our team interactions, our social cohesions. If we can't survive certain friendships, marriages, and employments on Earth. How in the heck are we going to do it for
Right,
2.5 years to Mars and back in a camper that the spaceship is the size of? And it's a really, really serious issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what if you get stuck with somebody you can't fucking stand, you know?
Yeah, and so, on Earth, we have tools to deal with that on Earth. Unfortunately, people engage in divorce, or they quit, or they get fired, or those are tools that you can effectively think of as how do you mitigate and handle those situations that you just can't stand. But those are tools that don't exist in space. You can't divorce your team.
You can't just get away, you can't just get away from them for like a minute. I mean, you probably could, but you're just like, behind a curtain.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. And so we were literally behind the curtain at times, and sometimes that curtain's the only thing between you and them when they're going to the bathroom or whatever.
Yeah, that's rough.
And so, it becomes a mission critical element that can be the difference between a catastrophic failure and a historic success. And I experienced that as a crew member. I saw the impact that all these extra tasks were having, and some of those tasks were unnecessary, and some of them could have been designed better and implemented better in terms of our concept of operations, or ConOps as we call it. And so being able to then, as the principal investigator in that NEMO mission, be able to actually empirically measure and capture that fact of how that's affecting the astronauts' performance was very valuable. It was also very meaningful to me because I've been a crew member as well, because almost no scientists who study these elements of the astronauts and space missions, they're never actually crew members, and the crew members are never actually the scientists.
To actually experience it yourself.
Yes, and so I was kind of
like, they find that too with like planes, like aircraft. They talk about it. I watch a lot of air disasters, but they talk about it if someone's flying for too long or they get some type of fatigue that does impair their decision makings and can take away from their checklist, make them skip something, think irrationally. Different stuff like that.
100%. And so that can make or break a space mission, just like it can make and break an airplane trip. It can make or break a marriage, a camping trip, all sorts of things. And in that respect, it's really very valuable. So it was an honor to have joined really great teams. We played a small part in those very much bigger teams, but it was an honor, and I'm very grateful. And we hope that what we find will be able to make a valuable contribution. And I think it has already. We've delivered that back to several NASA research conferences and papers and things of that effect, where we've actually seen it take effect and people make changes in how they're running missions based upon the feedback and the insight that we were giving back to them. And that's
huge. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I was reading some of the, the stuff that you were finding is that the longer you're on this mission, the more fatigued you are. Like the longer the task list, people start kind of missing things, right? They kind of start missing, get a little disorganized, for example, the longer they're on that type of mission, so to say.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, if you think of every day you're on a mission for whatever your job is on Earth. Right. And, so
we're all fatigued.
Well, yeah, and what I'm saying is it's a normal thing that is pretty common to happen, and it's extra important in these, elevated situations like the Artemis missions around the moon or whatnot, mission to Mars, mission to asteroids, mission to orbital, Earth, like staying in the ISS, like all this stuff matters at a very elevated level, just because, the stakes are so much higher. So, yeah, we experienced it as being very, very valuable. When we were crew, we saw it. And what I would add to that as bookend is the value of what we found scientifically from that, yes, about the brain and that element, is that those are the results that we measured of their behavior, of their neural responses, their cognitive responses. That is not what they told us. That is to say, if you ask them, they think they're fine. They think they're just as good as other times because they're humans just like us.
Right.
And a lot of times, we feel like we're doing fine.
Yeah.
But the whole point is to know when perception is not always the same as reality, and so that we can go in and take countermeasures and mitigate those times and make sure that we're really well calibrated in the match of perception and reality, and we're not necessarily guided off path by any potential mismatches there.
Amazing. That's crazy. So you found, you made a discovery, from what I was reading as well, having to do with the Dunning-Kruger effect. Did I get that right?
Yes,
So
sir.
tell me about that. Tell me about this discovery. So that somebody with my limited knowledge can understand.
Well, you actually kind of that's a good lead in there, because it's a segue to kind of demonstrating an element of the Dunning-Kruger effect. So when you say someone with limited knowledge like me or something like that, that is a component of the Dunning-Kruger effect, because what the Dunning-Kruger effect is a psychological phenomenon that characterizes the human tendency of where some of the most common things people do is overestimate their abilities when they're underperforming. Yet when they are some of the highest performers on a particular competency or task, they actually tend to underestimate how much capabilities they have. So when you say, oh, I'm just this and that, you're actually demonstrating some of the marks that we might call metacognitive capacities to kind of like restrain yourself in with a little humility, because you might have a little bit better understanding of what's out there. So, versus the kind of people who are like, oh no, I'm great, everything's perfect. And we all know, we've all been there, by the way. So,
Right.
we have all overestimated ourselves on times, and that's a part of the human condition.
Well, they were talking about it too. There was a stat that came out where they said where they were going around asking men, do you think you could land a plane with like no knowledge? And a lot of the men were like, oh yeah, I can, They're like, no problem. I could definitely do it. It's like, there's probably a little bit to that you probably don't know about, but
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, so I'm a pilot, and there's a lot of men who have a lot of knowledge and still have failed at landing the plane. So
right.
like qualified, certified pilots have made mistakes and failed at landing. So, with that, so basically you can think of that phenomenon, Dunning-Kruger effect, as something that Shakespeare said: the fool thinks himself wise, but the wise man thinks himself a fool. That is, the best people tend to hold themselves back a little bit, and sometimes the worst people tend to put themselves forward a little bit. And I call it psychological gravity, which is to say that we're all kind of like attracted to that state of, in some respects, thinking that we're better than we are. I mean,
right.
And that's kind of good. You want to be confident. Right. It's also good on the other end. You want to be humble and this and that. And, avoiding those, what we call illusory superiority perceptions that we're better than we are. That's kind of the psychological gravity that I was referring to, which is to think that like gravity is a physical force in nature. It affects all of us, just like the Dunning-Kruger effect affects all of us. We're all subject to thinking that we're under these illusions, thinking that we're better than we are. And in some respects, you kind of want to be, right? You do want to be like having ambitions and
right,
believing yourself. But like gravity, it can be overcome. We can leave Earth. We can leave ground. We can go in airplanes. We can go in rocket ships. We overcome gravity even when you hopscotch or jump rope. You're overcoming gravity. But what does that take? It takes energy and it takes effort. Energy is expensive, whether it's food, calories, gasoline, rocket propellant. And it works. But you have to use that energy after you've saved it and accrued it. But then you also get that energy burned, and you will come back down, which is to say that psychologically speaking, it's a good reminder that we need to always be working on that. We need to always be putting that energy into the equation, always be putting fuel in the airplane so that it stays above that threshold of falling back down into, giving into that psychological gravity, bringing us back down to that base level where we're going to make more errors because we're overestimating how good we think we are, and vice versa. I would say the last message we kind of pulled from that was the notion that there are, the people who actually conversely tend to underestimate themselves. Now, the internet loves the first side. The internet loves beating people up about who thinks they're better than they are, because we know a gajillion people like that, and we're all like that. And it's an easy target. But I think these humble heroes, the more I thought about it after we published that paper, which we characterized the first brain activity associated with that, and I can explain a little bit about what we think that meant in terms of interpretations for reasons of why the Dunning-Kruger effect is actually happening neurocognitively. But I did a lot of media, and I spent a lot of years writing these findings up and communicating them, and it dawned on me. I said, the real problem here are these underestimators. There's not a lot of them. But I said, I think they're the bigger problem in society. We can deal with the buffoons. We can deal with the braggadocios.
Right.
We can deal with the people who think they're greater than we are. But I said the real problem are the best in society who are underestimating themselves and holding themselves back from leadership positions, holding themselves back from speaking up about what they're actually the best at, where they need to be putting their hat in the ring to lead their communities, their neighborhoods, their businesses, their societies and cultures. Because they were subject to the opposite end of that illusion, which is to say, I think there's other people out there better than me.
There's always a bigger fish.
Well, yeah, but sometimes not in the moment. Not
right,
in the moment.
That's true.
In your neighborhood, they may need you to lead for something.
That's true. Very true.
So you think about the impact. People say, like, well, why are we so screwed politically or this or that? Like, why do we have such dumb leaders? And so, because the smartest people aren't bothering. They think, well, why should I run these? People probably know this. They probably know how to do this better. I'm going to defer to them. I don't know anything about water treatment management. I'll let the city council run that. Go to city council. They don't know anything.
They don't know what they're doing. Yeah.
So, like, there's this illusion, though, right? We think that somebody else knows more. And that is what I think one of the big findings was the encouragement, not just for people to be humble, but I want people to be less humble too. They need to be speaking up and believing in themselves more, because if they find that they're kind of having this imposter syndrome of feeling like, oh, I don't know if I really belong here, there's probably better people than me, that might be the sign that you're the best in the room, because you have that humility, you have that Socratic method of realizing what you don't know. And that is such a good mark for leadership to be constrained by. So anyways, I can go on and on about that.
I totally agree with you, though. I think that's such an interesting concept, because you just explained why in society we have idiots in office, and you get the smart people that are probably like, you know what? I just don't want to deal with it. Life's good, like I just, or they think, maybe there's probably somebody more qualified than myself to do that, and then you get the AOCs and the Karen Basses and all these political creatures that are like, who voted for you?
And both sides of the aisle, by the way, all you got to do is hang out with enough Republicans or Democrats to realize the empty shells that sometimes there certainly can be at that level of competence. I'm an equal opportunity targeter in that respect, because again, going back to the original point, right, this is human nature. This is something that we're all affected by a certain extent or another, and that, like gravity, we can all overcome if we put in the work metacognitively to practice that self-awareness, practice that calibration, or not, right? So we can really, really be hit hard if we're not practicing and engaging in those kinds of
I think that self-awareness thing. I drive a lot during the week, and I'll tell you something. Drivers completely lack awareness. Like, it's like, I find that people lack self-awareness, and it drives me crazy, Like, you'll see people walking, texting on their phone while there's people trying to get around them. It's like, come on. You got to have some basic common sense. But anyways, I digress. That was a pet peeve of mine. But I wanted to get into this next part because we started talking about politics. So you stood up and you whistle blew against Florida Institute of Technology, right? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So, and I've seen the video. It's like 3 minutes long. I'm not going to play it. But, you stood up and you said, this isn't right. And what was that moment where you said, I need to take this public, like this isn't right?
It's a really good question. So the moment that happened, I guess you could say there's two of them, but really the one that really crystallized that happened a month before that video occurred, which is what drove me to take the video. So I was a tenured faculty member at Florida Institute of Technology. I was the only straight white male conservative millennial-aged person in America to have ever been tenured. That is under age 45 during the era of DEI.
That's amazing. That's a stat on its own.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it for a while, and then it dawned on me upon reflecting, like, there's nobody else. I know that because I know my colleagues, like I know their belief system, and I know how other people who kind of believed like me were either quiet, in which case they were closeted conservative, so it doesn't really do much good, or they were just driven away because they were kind of disincentivized from the BS, and they just went to go do other things because for decades of our lifetime, we were literally told and read about in job ads and recruitment things how much they valued and encouraged women and minorities to apply for jobs. So like the best people were like, okay, maybe if that's me, I'll apply. But there's a lot of other people who are also very good who didn't meet that criteria. And they're like, it's pretty clear the writing on the wall. I'm going to go do something else. I'll work in tech, work in crypto, work on something else. And they did. And so maybe I was dumb enough to stick around, but I had my reasons. And so I was the only guy at that level. I was a tenured faculty member at Florida Tech, and I had monthly faculty meetings that we have with all the psychology faculty. And the month before that video occurred, I was in that meeting, and they were telling us how like the diversity committee representative from the university came back and said, well, the president of the university had this meeting in Tallahassee for a $7 million grant. And this was in March of 2025. So it was about a month and a half after Trump's executive orders on DEI had come through, which was right at the end of January. Right. Now we're in Florida, so we had some stuff precede that from the DeSantis.
You got Governor DeSantis, with you. I mean, he's as conservative as they come.
And so the message was that to get this $7 million grant from DeSantis in Tallahassee, the president of my university was told to clean up all of the DEI and the woke stuff on our websites and not to do that stuff anymore. And so we were told in that meeting that the president wants us to stay under the radar, but to keep doing the DEI. He says, they're just looking for words. So just
take them down and just do the actions. Anyway.
Hide it. And so I spoke up in that meeting and I said, well, that creates kind of a conflict here because, I'm just a W-2 employee here. I'm getting two pieces of information, like being what you're writing, which is that we're going to comply with the law, comply with the directives, and then what you're saying, which is, you come to these meetings and you tell us, don't worry, do it anyways. So I'm like, what if I get in trouble? Like, I need some cover. Can you write it down? Like, we need a written directive.
Right. Because if you get caught doing it as a teacher, then you're going to be the one that's in trouble. And the university's probably going to throw the book at you and go, well, we didn't know that they were doing this. So you're like, I want it in writing so that if I get fucking in trouble, I'm not the one getting hit with this. But the university wanted to wash their hands of it like Pontius Pilate.
Well, exactly, right? Because like we apply for federal funding grants, and I have federal funding. Like it's not just I get in trouble. Like I could lose federal funding. Like there's all sorts of things, right? Nobody wants to be afoul of any law. Right. Forget about the social politics of DEI, this and that. If we're being told that to receive federal funding, you got to do X, Y, and Z, and they're like, don't do X, Y, and Z, but take federal funding. That puts you in a pretty tough.
Oh yeah, that's illegal. Situation. That's illegal for sure.
It's fraud.
Yeah,
it's just fraud. And so that's the answer to your question. When was that moment? When I asked that question and they said, the answer to the question was that the president's office doesn't want to put anything in writing because he doesn't want it to be used as evidence against him in court. But he'll come to the meeting next month and tell it to you guys in person. And I'm like, all right, I see what's going on here.
Right.
Like, this is a problem. They're admitting to fraud.
Major conflict.
The intention to defraud state and federal funds, state and federal taxpayers, as well as the lawmakers. And I'm like, that's a problem. That's illegal. That's not going to be good. And so at that point, again, right, it's like, so it's my ass or theirs.
Right.
Because I'm going to be the one in trouble for it. Because clearly, if they're going to play these kind of games and lie to lawmakers,
right, then they're going to fuck you.
Like if they're going to lie to them, then they're also going to lie to me about being able to cover me later. They're going to throw me to the wolves if we get caught.
Right. So you want it in writing. You want it in writing so that you can say, hey, this is what I was told.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, don't we want to live in a world that's
transparency,
not a world of lies? I just want to live with the truth.
Right. And that puts you in a really shitty position because you're told to do one thing, and as a person, you should know right from wrong. It sounds like the university was the one that didn't know right from wrong in this situation.
Exactly. I mean, I'm a father. Like, if my 3-year-old, my 5-year-old, if they ask me about a situation like this, I know the answer I have to tell them.
Right.
Just to do the right thing. Like, at the end of the day, like, I just don't want to live in a world, like, just at that level, not esoterically live in the world in my day-to-day work where I am doing one thing and saying another and covering up what somebody else wants to not be caught doing. Like, why do I want to join that conspiracy to defraud? Why do I want to join a team of people who are effectively lying? Like that, it's just not how you live a life. It's not how you do a job, by the way, either. And they're selling out the university by putting people in the university in that kind of a precarious position of lies.
I agree.
So at that point, it was very clear. It was unfortunate to see. I mean, there are all the faculty. There are people in there crying that they got to take down their DEI, and they're like, no, you can still do it. They're like, no, and they're saying, no. How about we just not comply? Darby Proctor, the other professors.
What a crazy thing to say. And like the thing is like by definition too. Like we talk about like, hey, let's be colorblind as a society. Let's bring in the people who are the best of the best in every situation academically. That's the whole idea, to be colorblind. And I feel like there was a generation, my generation, I grew up, we were very colorblind. Nobody gave a shit what color you are. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, you know, when it comes to even colleges and stuff, well, it's just the definition of racism. You know, Martin Luther King said, you know, that someday I pray that my kids are judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. And this is like reverse racism kind of thing. It's
how
like,
dirty did they do the grandkids of Martin Luther King by judging them by the color of their skin now, and not by the content of their character?
And they're probably a lot smarter than me, but I'm just saying, you know, like, you know,
what an insult to what he died for and what he lived for, to now create this inverted oppression Olympics where you have people given positions because of the color of their skin and other people competing for them, not getting them also because of the color of their skin or whatever other immutable factors outside of our control of our merit. And that is an insult to Martin Luther King and all of his descendants. It's an insult to all of us Americans, because I mean, I'm the same thing as you. Like, I wasn't raised to see race. I wasn't. I mean, I was frankly shocked when as an adult, I started seeing people look through the world in that lens. I just didn't see it. I didn't think about it because it wasn't a factor in how we grew up. And things changed a lot, I think, as the Obama administration kind of put race at the forefront of so much in society from that era, that 6 to 8 year period. Really fundamentally changed things to where people were angry about things that they had never been angry about before.
Yeah, I agree.
And
100%.
You know, racism can't be the cure for racism.
Right.
And
can't kill fire with fire.
No, and you know, at the end of the day, it's just like it should be merit. And I get a lot of questions about this in respect to DEI and the social politics of it and this and that. And all I would tell people is that, you know, there are well-meaning people who question me about this and say, well, we need things like DEI to help protect us or to make sure we're not discriminated against. And I would always remind them, I said, well, you don't, because you already have that. You already have the Civil Rights Act of 1964. If you're discriminated against, you already have legal protections that say you can't do that.
And I always like to point out, too, that there's the soft bigotry of low expectations in some of these public school programs, where this is where you see some of the schooling that goes to trash, because they go, oh, you know, this is an inner school of, you know, mostly black people. Who cares? Give them the same education, the same standards of everybody else. They're not dumber. And it's racist to think that they are. They can handle it. And I think you'd find a better off society, too, where if you stopped looking at things through a color lens and just said, you know, we got to treat all these kids equally, give them all the equal opportunity, all the equal shot that every kid gets when they walk into a public school system. You know, that's my opinion. But
no, I mean, I'm with you 100%. I mean, I was a wrestler my whole life in junior high, high school, college. Me and so many of my friends. I mean, some of my best friends are like 5'2", 5'3". But if we built a basketball game where they all had to play on lowered rims,
right,
they'd be insulted.
Right.
Like they'll be like, even especially the shortest buddies of mine have like the biggest egos. They're like, I'm going to shoot that ball all the way up there. Like they would be the most insulted by a lowered rim. 100%.
100%. Yeah.
Like, because they have integrity and they have dignity.
Right.
They have self-respect.
And they know that this is not how the game's played.
Yes. And they know that, hey, look, I'm not going to slam dunk it but you don't need to slam dunk it. I can score a gajillion points just shooting it or laying it up, or that there's other methods that can be used to achieve the same goals. Yeah. And they understand that, and you work at a different strategy because that's life. That's just nature. So anyways, so we saw that, and we captured the next month on video the president. Sure enough, he came. He said the exact same stuff. He said, I met with the DeSantis organization. Says he turned 2 screens around, said, why are you so woke? And I drove home and I said, why don't we fight back? These aren't smart people. They're just using AI to scrape this stuff. And, we're going to do what we do. Diversity is important. Critical race theory is important. And he says, if we have a class that's called DEI 101, and everyone starts laughing because we had a graduate level course taught by the whitest little old lady. And like, and I even warned them about that. So in December, after the election of 2024, I warned the provost. I said, just so you guys know, like, our psychology institute that gets a lot of this research grant money, the ICCM, Intercultural, I forget what it was, Institute for Cross-Cultural Management, ICCM. I said, they're kind of based upon getting all this money based on this DEI grift that, whether you believe or agree with it or not, like, obviously there's a new administration coming in, all the indications they've said are that this money's going to dry up. So, like, we're going to be in trouble economically, and we need to create a different research pathway for research funds. And sure enough, it was that exact organization, ICCM, that the governor caught and showed our president, Johnny Nicklow from Florida Tech, showed him in Tallahassee and showed him the ICCM is exactly as I predicted. They didn't listen. And so we took that public with James O'Keefe and, revealed the truth of the lies that they were saying. And then when that came out, then they lied about
So was that how you released it initially, was through James O'Keefe? Yeah. I was curious because that was going to be one of my questions. How did you bring it public? And then what was the university's response once you
man. Okay, so this is great. So before James released it to the public, James came up and he first interviewed that president, old Johnny Nicklow, and said, hey, I'm James O'Keefe. Like, we caught you on video saying that you're just going to change the words to get around the president's executive orders for DEI. Of course, what do liars do? They lie.
All right.
Lies right to James O'Keefe, says, no, that's not true. It's so he's lying there about the video in which he's lying. Oh. And which is like perfect. Like, that's James O'Keefe's bread and butter, right? Because you catch these people who lie and lie. And it just and then you just play the tape, right? And
then what do you have to say about that? You're caught literally red-handed.
Well, what he says is then he twists it around. So then he issues this like statement out to the university saying that it was deceptively edited, it was taken out of context, which, by the way, like, I'm the guy who took the video. I'm the whistleblower, and I'm vouching. Like, it wasn't taken out of context.
It wasn't edited. It was just a video,
Well, yeah. Well, even the context of the video is exactly as James O'Keefe represented it in the depiction of it. Right. And I've put more of that video out now in the time since then. So the president lies to the entire public in the campus in these public emails that he sends out. Read about. So he lied to DeSantis. He said he was going to drive home and fight back against him. He says, don't get caught doing DEI, but still do it. And to us as faculty, to join him in this conspiracy to defraud. Because he says, I actually don't care if DeSantis yanks back that $7 million. It's only $7 million.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure that was not true also. $7 million is a tough goodbye, If I lost $7 million, I'd be like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, but what he said, he's like, I can deal with that, but what I don't want to get caught with is losing the federal funds, which is $69 million a year.
Oh, yeah.
And so he lied to DeSantis, lied to the Trump administration in certifying that they're complying with these regulations in order to receive these state and federal funds. Then he lies to James O'Keefe on the interview about it. Then he lies to campus, lie number 3, saying this is deceptively edited and taken out of context. That wasn't true either. Then he lies again and says this was an illegal recording of a private meeting, which is another lie because it wasn't illegal and it wasn't a private meeting. So then
everybody's there. You can see that in the video.
Not only is it there, they actually record those meetings. And everything I told you
So then
about
it was probably there. Yeah, you could probably link it back.
No, they have a recording of it. So like, and what they do, like meeting minutes, like they'll record it, but they'll write it down. They take their own recordings, but they'll write it down. Then they write the whole summary of the meeting, of who said what, and they send it out to a bunch of people who weren't there, who couldn't make it. That's the opposite of private.
So it's obvious. Like he did say it, and there's proof. There's evidence. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, like, the video is the evidence. If I didn't have the video, you'd say, well, we got to see the video. But I have the video.
Right.
So anyways,
it's obvious what's going on. Yeah.
And not only that, but then they go on to say, like, oh, no, we've always been compliant with DeSantis's directives and this and that. We support it. Complete lies. Because I was there. I was the witness. I was the whistleblower. I know exactly that. And there's more that we didn't release, too. Like, it's an absolute lie. Yeah, I mean, then I ultimately ended up getting fired for that from a tenured position. They offered me $100,000, just about $96,000, if I would sign a non-disclosure agreement and a non-disparagement clause.
That's amazing.
Sign an agreement that would indemnify them where I could never sue them if I would just resign.
That's crazy.
And I told them to eat shit, and like, my integrity is not for sale. It never will be. And
plus, like, the lawsuit's got to be worth more than that.
I am suing them right now, and we're put in for between $40 and $60 million damages, and that's just in state court. Probably do more in federal and other things.
100%. Especially if you get it done now too with the good guys in power.
Well, yeah. So I mean, so I'll give you a note on that. So DeSantis is not taking that money back. DeSantis's people haven't done anything to get those taxpayer funds back. We've asked him. He's sent it through their the executive office of the governor's inspector general, sent it to the commissioner of education's deputy commissioner, Anastasios, forget his last name, but his deputy commissioner, Susan Pridgen. That was in September that they haven't responded to. So Florida has become this surprising story of where woke goes to lie.
Yeah,
and
I believe that. Because it doesn't live outside. It's got to hide under a rock. You know?
Well, yeah. And so if you think, this is surprising to a lot of people, because this is DeSantis's big brand, the DEI. It's a signature item. So it's very surprising, very hurtful to me as a voter. I supported Ron. His COVID policies helped my wife to stay alive when she was delivering our baby. I was able to be in the room, and I actually helped save her when she had a medical emergency. So I'm very grateful and supportive of Ron. I think he's one of the best governor in the nation. Sometimes that's because the bar is so low of other governors. Right. But I respect a lot what he's done, and I'm very, very grateful for what he's done. But on his signature item,
I can't believe he hasn't clawed that back yet.
Me too. I can't believe it either. I dog him about it now. I used to be really nice about it, but now I dog him pretty hard online, because it turns out that, as surprising as that is, it's now a consistent pattern. So at the University of Florida, just the last couple of weeks, they've now hired their second DEI president, Stuart Bell, that the Manhattan Institute and I think the Palm Beach Institute as well has been pretty forward, together with the Miami Herald and Orlando Sentinel has had a lot of papers come out, because they just hired this guy, UF, who was a raging DEI fanatic when he was president at the University of Alabama. And Ron supported it and said, oh, I fully support this guy. And people are like, what's going on here? This seems kind of out of character for Ron.
Right.
And it turns out they did the same thing the year prior, and they had to cancel that. Ron had to walk it back because of pressure from people like Chris Rufo on his inner circle and other people, because it was so egregious, the president from University of Michigan that they were hiring for being a wild DEI sycophant, that they had to cancel that search, put this temporary guy in, and now they just went through an entire year evaluation process, hired the next guy from Alabama. It turns out he's a wild DEI advocate too. So that's God. 3 times a charm. And like I said, I caught the first one lying to his face, to the face of Ron DeSantis and the governor. And now you got 3 presidents in a row. Right. I don't know what to say. I mean, I'd love to get a beer with Ron and talk it out. I think we probably make pretty good friends at the end of it, but there is some accountability that has not been provided. Why that is, we'll find out in depositions and discovery. But there's an opportunity for him to still do the right thing. There's always
some shady backstory deal, why they haven't yet, I imagine it'll come out in discovery.
Oh, we're going to have a ball, man. We're going to have a really, really, really interesting time.
So after that, has the university, reached out to you at all? Have they harassed you at all?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. So, let's see here. So first, before they fired me, this director of HR, Jessica Vincent, tried shaking me down to meet with her while I was on family leave. And I'm like, I'm not allowed to work on family leave. That's federal law. And then she says that I didn't answer her, but I was on family leave and I had an out of office response. And then they tried to use that as saying that I wasn't subordinate, I guess, because I wouldn't work during federal family leave. I had a baby postpartum at home.
That's crazy.
I wasn't allowed. And then so then she emails me again and says, with legal department, that they want to corner me, her and the legal team, in a meeting. And I said, sure, like I'll bring my attorney with. She said, no, you're not allowed to bring your attorney. You just have to be subjected to hours. Yeah.
Like, how does that work? So, like, absolutely not.
Well,
I'll bring my attorney. I'll bring my attorney.
Yeah, I said I have a right to counsel, and like I will meet. I'm not saying I won't, but
right. But I'm bringing my attorney.
Yeah. Well, and I said, and if I'm not allowed to bring my attorney, then I'm going to live stream it on whatever platform you prefer. But like, I'm not going to not meet with you. I'll meet with you, but like, there will be a record of this because you guys are caught.
They lie. Yeah, they lie. Yeah.
And so they did that. They tried to chase me down on that. Like I said, they tried to buy me out with hush money of almost $100,000, left me high and dry, fired with nothing. Lost. And by the way, shameless plug, we have a GoFund or a GiveSend Go fundraiser out there.
Yeah, I'll put that up on the links with everything so that way people can go donate.
Because, I mean, everything I'm telling you, Drew, and your audience, it cost me a 25-year career and a lifetime of employment and $100,000, and took my children's mother away from them, who has to work to help pay the bills now of leaving the babies behind her. So this is an extraordinary price we've paid after 25 years battling through DEI at every level of college admission, graduate admission, postdoctoral selection, faculty selection, tenure selection, research grants, NASA astronaut finals, NASA missions, and then to be tanked out with zero is a pretty rough hammer to be hammered by. But we're standing strong, and
Now, are you now, like you had said that you're suing them? Like, aren't there whistleblower protections? Like,
yeah.
Aren't there laws for whistleblower protections? I mean, you got.
That's exactly what we're suing under, and they're of course denying it and lying. So I get all these. So first off, when we sued them, they filed a motion to dismiss, asking the judge for a get out of jail free card and just throw the case out.
Right.
And the judge looked at the case and they looked at what they filed, and what they filed was not true. And so the judge said, no, you guys got to face the music. So we won. We won the motion to dismiss, which is a huge hurdle that you have to get through first. Now we're getting discovery. Next, we're getting depositions, and we'll be in trial within the next 3 months. I think by September, we should be in trial in Florida. So that accountability is coming. That's slow, and it's frustrating. But
the slowness is frustrating, I imagine, with everything. The length of every, the judicial system.
Yeah, so I mean, like, they're saying it wasn't whistleblower protection or wasn't whistleblower retaliation because they're saying that they had complaints against me, which weren't true. Because here's the best part. So this is on my Substack. I wrote this back in January, February this past year, when we won that motion to dismiss. 3 days before I captured that video, which was April 4th, they offered me a brand new contract for life, a renewed tenured contract, indefinite terms for life. And then I was fired 2 months after that. And in between, they gave me a raise.
Wow.
The only thing that happened, so if anything they want to say that happened beforehand,
yeah,
it's like, well, you rehired me.
Right.
What
you were going to give them a raise. Yeah.
Talk about the pinnacle of stupid. They are led by stupid.
Yeah. And
their HR is, I know them really, really well. They are not bright. They are not sending their best. They are straight out of central casting. They are very, very not bright people. That's how you end up in being sued for $40 to $60 million, is being not very for the
Right.
beginning. So that's endemic of the entire
It's like
institution.
their whole job is to protect the business.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this. So the chair of the Department of Psychology, the chair of the undergrad program, he's never published an empirical research paper in his entire life. And he's been he hasn't even been progressed to tenure. He's not even a researcher. He's been an assistant teacher, essentially, for his entire career. That is the bottom barrel in academia of a nothing burger in terms of competence and capabilities. The head of the School of Psychology has been working for 25 years as a clinical psychologist and professor. To think she's published, no one has cited. She's had like about 150, 160 citations in her entire career. And so for like the non-nerds out there, I get more than that on single papers. And that's her entire life. So nobody else in the field respects what she's doing, Julie. When we talk about incompetence and stupid up the chain, that's what I'm talking about. The chair, right up to the top, right up. And so when we talk about cultures and leadership, that's the kind of thing that happens when you spend 25 years prioritizing factors other than merit in your hiring and promotion. You get a chain of command of raw incompetence that leads into this situation.
I feel like that's specifically too in like academia. Like you have these teacher unions that truly protect the worst of the worst, these purple-haired freaks that, and it's like, it's like just leave that shit out of the classroom. That's all I'm saying, in terms of like elementary. Just leave the pride flags out of the classroom. Just teach the fucking kids. That's all we're asking.
And honestly, that's all the kids are asking.
Right. That's all they
don't want to be indoctrinated. They just, like, college is fun. A lot of kids want to go to college and this and that, and they want to learn and this and that. But at the same time, like, a lot of them, they don't want to be there. Like, they're there because kind of they have to be. They want to get trained, but like they want to get on with their lives too. They don't want to be indoctrinated.
It's a means to an end. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there surrounded in these faculty meetings by people who are crying because Trump won't let them teach that there's 14,000 genders. And like,
that's crazy.
Like, it's insane. And there are faculty, like, unabashed racists, unabashed people just discriminating. And I had found that for years. So I'll give you an example. The year beforehand in my performance evaluation, I was held hostage by those same two incompetent people that I just mentioned, with like no real professional qualifications of any kind of substance that would be respectable. And she said, well, you're getting you'll be scored well this year. I did so well, like they had to. They're trying to hit me, but they couldn't.
Right.
But she said, but next year, you're not going to get a satisfactory unless you're more inclusive in your teaching. And here is the link to our website of what you can follow, of what our values are, of what does it mean that you need to do to be more inclusive.
So what does that mean?
So that's the first thing I asked her. I said, what the hell does that mean? I'm not kicking anybody out of class. There's nobody who's not included. There's nobody excluded.
Do you want me to grade the black kids differently or these kids differently than the rest of them? Like, how does that work?
So in terms of, I'm a psychologist, we talk about construct validity. I'm like, well, what does that mean? What is the construct? Define the thing, operationalize it. She couldn't. That's why she put a link into the thing. So then you're going to love this, Drew. So, because I had to go through this in deposition or discovery recently. I had to go through all my files and figure this stuff out. I went to go check that link. I'm like, oh, that website that she said I'm held hostage to for my future evaluation if I do this inclusivity was the university's website for DEI. That's the I of inclusive.
Oh my God.
And guess what? It was a 404 dead link that she sent me to. Do you know why it was a dead link?
Because they had to remove it.
That's the website that the chief law enforcement officer of the state, Governor DeSantis, took him down and said, that shit's illegal. You can't do that. Take it down. I'm held hostage to that.
That's crazy.
So, like, wild. And, like, So, okay, yeah, so other thing. So I run a small company then as well. I have a small LLC, Space Psychology, where we take the things we started off talking about, which is what did we learn on these NASA missions, making sure that astronauts can survive and thrive in space, but also when they come back to Earth and reintegrate society and culture and get ready for the mission beforehand, be supported in the mission, and then post-mission come back and support. Building this out, providing training also to non-astronauts, people, organizations, companies, teamwork, followership, leadership, all the good things that make our culture and communities and families thrive. It's a fledgling company. We're just building up. I was set up to give a speech from I live in the city of Palm Bay out on the Space Coast here by Kennedy Space Center, to give a keynote speech 1 month to all the private, like sort of commercial space companies in the area, presenting and featuring this new business during the summertime when I'm off contract at the university to feature my business work, building this out. Turns out I talked to the president of the Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce a little while later, and she says, yeah, you're no longer doing this. I'm like, well, why? She says, Florida Tech pulled you. They called us and told us not to have you there. And I said, who cares?
How would they be even involved with this?
That's what I said. I guess it was at their facility or something, but irrespective, I said, so what? Like, I'm like, it's your event. You're the Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce. Like,
right.
Why don't you just tell them to pound sand? Like,
right.
And she's like, well, they do pay us a lot of money. They're a big donor to us. So, you know. And I said, Nancy, come on, Nancy. And she kowtowed to the money because people are cowards and they're greedy and they're weak.
They are.
But that's not us, Drew. That's not what we're going to rebuild this country with. We have courage instead of cowardice. We have strength instead of weakness. And we have humbleness instead of greediness. And so they literally engaged in tortious interference in my private company after I was fired.
Wow.
So interfering in my reputation and business opportunities after
you should
my
employment. Sue them again for that. I'll be like, fuck you. Good.
I am.
Fuck them. Like, get out of here.
And so right now I'm in the process of responding to a lot of the lies that they're writing.
You think they would just want to like walk away, just stop your bullshit, just lick your wounds and walk away. But they don't seem to.
There you go again, Drew. You're sounding competent. There you go. There you go again. What
just
did I
lick
say?
your wounds and walk away. Come on, sometimes that's what you got to do.
That's the Dunning-Kruger thing, right? You're smart enough to know to have been humble earlier and kind of keep yourself in check a little bit. You kind of like downplayed yourself a little, but like they're not. They don't know that like, hey, there's a calculus here. Like maybe there's a cost benefit analysis. This is going to get worse for you and it will never get better. And instead they've doubled, tripled down. They're going in so hard because there's arrogance, stupidity, incompetence.
Oh, it's arrogance for sure.
It's wild because the things that they're saying, I own the data. I know what happened. I have the records. And I'm like, it's not true. It's right. Provably not true. It's in my Substack, like I just said. Like, you can't say that, like, there was a student complaint in 2023, then you tenured me multiple times, re-tenured, and then terminated me without notice later.
Wild.
For that, like, no, that's because of whistleblower retaliation, you lying scumbags.
And you think that they would sit there and be like, well, if we do this, it would be whistleblower retaliation. Like, let's not do that. But they seem to have the worst legal counsel.
They have a mouth breather of a legal counsel. I know her. I know Grace Gamache. She's only their general counsel because she's never really tried a case in her life. She fell upwards because they burned through so many other general counsels. She was working as the Title IX director, enforcer person after going to law school as a softball player in D2 and never tried a case, stayed in Title IX offices on campuses, and they needed a lawyer because they couldn't keep a general counsel who could tolerate their bullshit on campus. So they failed this person upwards into the general counsel office because she was cheap. But she's never really litigated serious cases. She doesn't really know this stuff very well, and she creates these extraordinary legal liabilities for them that they're now suffering the price of, and they will continue to suffer the price from, because again, like incompetence breeds incompetence. The competent people are not attracted to want to work with the other incompetent people there, and they're not. They're driven away. And I felt it when I was there. They drove away all the other competent professors because there are a few of us. We kind of stuck together. We were friends. Like, they're lining up like flies. They're leaving year after year after year. So what are you left with is a barrel full of incompetence. And when you need people to repopulate from the bullpen, all you can take are the incompetent ones from the barrel, which is how they populate up the ladder. And that's exactly what's happening. So like I had meetings over the years with, to your point about they should know what retaliation is. I met with the director of HR, Pat Francois. I met with the vice president of HR, Jessica Vincent, both of them together about whistleblower retaliation, when I had reported things of what was racist on campus that they were doing, and how, they were doing things discriminating against pregnant women and against students and fraud and other things. And I was in the meetings, and they literally didn't understand what retaliation was. And they're like, well, we investigated and we didn't find that to happen. I'm like, well, it did happen. They just lied to you about it. And they're like, well, still, then it can't be retaliation. And I said, do you understand that you have a whistleblower status, whether or not the complaint was found positive or negative? They didn't compute. These ladies, they look at you with like diabetic face. It's just like diabetic coma. They just go blank. And you're like, no,
it doesn't matter if it went through or not. like,
how can you have anybody believe that they can come forward as a whistleblower if they'll only be protected if it's found positive?
Right.
That's not how the law works at all.
Right.
They had no comprehension, bro. They have like wild incompetence that you wouldn't believe if I didn't have the videos of this kind of stuff. And people say this too. They're like, why did that president say that? That was so dumb.
It was dumb,
these were like, they're like, he has a PhD, he's a college president.
Especially because you said they're taped otherwise. Like, that's just evidence to what he's doing. Like, if that ever became public, which it did, then he's still fighting the same thing.
You know what he says in the meeting? He says, I really encourage you guys, kind of be careful what you say. Because,
It's wild.
And, bro, you're not that careful what you said. So,
wild.
Yeah, I mean, just, and it reflects the outcome of why these policies are so problematic for our nation, which is that it creates organizations, companies, universities, governments, where that kind of an example of up and down the chain incompetence is everywhere. And you don't have to throw a stone to find somebody who will confirm that.
And somebody brought this up on another podcast, which I thought it was true, is that you don't have Republican parents telling their kids to go work for the government. Only Democrat parents are like, go work for the government. So then you take the competent people on the one side of the party, and they don't come to the top. All you're stuck with is, the mentally ill of the mentally ill.
100%, and I blame Republicans deeply. I hold a deep grudge against them for that. I gave one talk to a group called STARS that I'm an advisory board member of, which is Stand Against Radicalism and Racism in the Services of the Military. And people asked me that in the Q&A session afterwards about like, well, what are some strategies and tactics? How do we fight back? Like, how do we take this country back from these kind of things? And I said, well, for one thing, we need to start looking at these government jobs as service positions, as standing a post like you would being a grunt in the Army or the Marines or something. They're not the most glamorous, glorious jobs, but we consider it a service duty to stand a post.
Right.
And it's the other side, like you said, the Democrats who've raised their kids and said, go do this.
Right.
The Republicans don't. And because of that, we've given up the ship. We did that in academia. We've completely given up the
100%, yeah.
And that's why you have somebody like me who is the last guy standing, and now there's nobody left in the bullpen. And Con Inc. hasn't cared a hoot to offer a hand, to do fundraising, to do anything to help me stay afloat, because that's part of the problem. The left looks at it with this team approach of supporting their people until, of course, they get what you want. Then they take them out back and shoot.
Right.
Because that's what the left does. They
like you saw with like Eric Swalwell, what you're seeing with this Plattner guy, Graham Plattner. Oh, it's crazy. But
now they eat their own, but they do take care of their own until it's time to eat them.
Right.
And the right just eats them and doesn't even take care of them. So like
100%.
At least put some salt and pepper on us, like season us a little bit before before you eat us.
Right.
But that is part of the big problem, is that, like you said, culturally, we have never had people willing. And it goes back to kind of the Dunning-Kruger example, like you said earlier in the beginning of our conversation, which is that, like, why would you want to work in government?
Right.
Like, why would you, if you're competent, you're probably making triple in the private sector.
100%. 100%.
And let's say, so if you're going to go run for Congress, you make $174,000 a year, which sounds like a lot of money, but then you've got to hold 2 households over that while you're gone most of the year away from your family and kids, and fundraising and doing a bunch of other, hard work, but you're away and you're running 2 households, your home district and your DC house, on that salary. But you probably, if you were good enough to win, you were probably making potentially 2 to 8 times that from your earlier job, because you were probably a prominent leader in your society. So you were taking a giant pay cut to do that. So why would you? It's not incentivized. It doesn't make sense, with the exception that the reason is service. 100%. Service and duty and belief and honor of actually the noble class, right? We as the leaders of your, town, your community, it's noble to serve. It's noble to leave that job or to leave your business and go serve your community through that representation. Amen. But we haven't done that. Right. We've sent our worst, the Dunning-Kruger. We send the people who just want to do it the most, who think they're the most competent, but the most competent we've kept at home. And for partially good reasons of like disincentivization. So, I mean, yeah, if you really want to, strip that down and do, analyses like that, those are areas that absolutely need to be addressed and fixed culturally. And because we've been getting our ass kicked for decades. We've given it up. We've given it up the ship.
Yep, we have. Well, I appreciate you coming on this Saturday. I can't thank you enough. You've been super interesting. We'll have to have you on again to follow up with the court cases and everything. But thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you. And I will put your links in all the video stuff too. So go check out and go. It's a Give, Send, Go to help him and his family during these times. We thank you so much for everything you've done, and keep the faith.
Thank you, man. The Give, Send, Go is called The Truth Is Not For Sale, and it's in the link in my Twitter or X bio. The Truth Is Not For Sale and Give, Send, Go, and it helps us a lot, because everything we said today cost me at least $100,000 in a lifetime career in order to tell you the truth that they wanted to purchase the silence of.
Well, we appreciate you. Keep fighting the good fight. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, so that was the man, the myth, the legend, and what a story. I mean, my gosh, he is being weaponized against. Just crazy. Now, I wanted to leave with this one last video because the shit is crazy, and it really, really bothers me, okay? Is this wild story of these people who are YouTubers and all of that stuff. And they found out online that they were going to have a Down syndrome baby. And so they decided to have an abortion. And they said this all over the news and everything. So this is them now saying, this is them now saying that they've truly seen the meanness and the darkness of humanity because of how people have treated them for killing their Down syndrome baby. Check this out.
The world is almost lacking in that vulnerability with the death threats and everything. It has been shocking. Close people to us, very judgmental, religious based, saying we're going to burn in hell. We deserve to die.
I don't deserve to be a mother because of the decision that we just made.
You don't.
Yeah, we had a gate installed. I have a gun next to my nightstand because it's been getting so ridiculous. And they've been coming to emails, DMs, you name it. It's been we've seen the darkest side of humanity through this process. But I feel like the world is almost.
He says, I've seen the darkest side of humanity through this. Motherfucker, you are the dark side of humanity. You killed your baby because it had Down syndrome. Not only are you a disgusting individual, but you are also demeaning the lives of every Down syndrome kid out there, or man, woman, and saying they're not worth living. They don't deserve to live. Their life is valueless. And that's not fucking true. And these people are fucking sick. And they deserve all the shame, all the hatred. Because they're fucking scumbags. And I thought about this, is that I remember Charlie Kirk was arguing about this, and he said, if your values don't come from the Bible, where do they come from? Where do these people get their morals? Society? Because that's a fucking dark place. But where are you getting your morals and values if it's not from the Bible, who teaches us the guidelines on how to live a productive life and a good life and a holy life, a godly life? These people are sick, and it's disgusting, and they deserve all the hatred that they're getting because they've been told by the shit community that they live in that that's okay. But you know what? That mother didn't seem to have any disgrace over her just murdering her baby. She's the most selfish and entitled and worthless piece of shit. And I hope she never has a kid, because the kid, she doesn't deserve one. She had that chance, and now she should never have a kid again. And that's all I got. So this one here is an illegal alien going absolutely apeshit after getting caught shoplifting. Check this one out.
Usted ahora lo lleva a migración. Ya, pero yo tengo un hijo, tengo familia aquí, tengo hijos, no pueden deportarme, po.
La verdad, ustedes se van a ir. Can I talk to you real quick?
¿Cómo?
Can I talk to you real quick?
Sí.
All right. Are you here with someone else?
Español.
¿Tú estás aquí con otra persona?
No, sola.
Okay. All right.
If you can't speak English, don't be driving in the United States,
Okay.
period.
All right. ¿Tú tienes tu ID?
If you can't read our fucking stop signs and shit, they shouldn't have a driver's license.
Espera. Antes de estar cogiendo cosas, okay. All right.
¿Por qué?
All right. Solo quédate ahí un momento, okay?
¿Qué pasó?
You're saying the other one's inside the store?
Yeah, the other female is inside the store.
But this is the correct vehicle?
For sure she's stolen, and the other female's
Okay. All right. Go ahead and put your hands behind your back.
Mi ID.
Put your hand behind your back. Stay right here.
Yeah.
Stay right here.
Estoy mojada.
224, 1 detained.
Esto fue por mi teléfono.
Okay.
¿Por qué? ¿Qué pasó?
224
¿No
sent
puedes
to copy a California tag.
Tell them not to come with a car, so we don't see the car.
All right. Stay right here.
Disculpe.
What was that?
The merchandise inside the car.
You already seen it?
I saw her.
Okay.
Both of them put the merchandise inside the car.
Perfect.
And I
Okay.
saw the merchandise.
Oiga,
All right.
disculpe. ¿Yo puedo llamar a mi familia? Sí.
Moment.
So they're caught stealing
Por favor, que
shit,
no se me enoje.
and as they're catching stealing shit,
Caballero, ¿le puede sacar
they're
mi
like, oh, we
billetera
don't
ahí,
even
por
speak
favor?
English.
La
Get them
billetera,
out
por
of here.
favor.
Él te tiene apprehension.
La billetera, ¿me la puede sacar, nena?
So it's just the two right now.
Like, how do you think that's okay? Get the fuck out of here.
Because that's
If
where
you
all the
can't speak
merchandise is
English,
right
don't
now.
come to America.
The LP guy already confirmed. I guess he looked in the car while they were in Ross, and then she scooted it out over here and got into the car, and that's where he backed off and was sitting behind. She was texting someone, probably the other person inside.
Does she speak any English or no? Okay. I'm gonna, before she goes in the car,
¿Español no?
search her.
¿Español no?
Sí, yo hablo español.
¿Me puede sacarme la billetera del auto, por favor?
She says, can I grab my wallet
Sí,
from my
porque tengo
car?
mi
Well, I
dinero,
got
por
my
favor, para que
money.
no se me pierda
I
ya.
don't want to lose it. she
I'm
said.
just gonna search as best as I can before she gets in the car.
Nosotros te vamos a chequear por arma para verificar que tú no tienes ningún arma encima de ti ya dentro.
That's okay. I got it.
You're not going
No
anywhere.
tengo nada.
You're going to jail, and then you're going back to your country, sweetheart.
So, hey, this was in her pocket. It's used to get through anti-theft devices, which there is a Florida state statute for being in being in possession of an anti-theft device or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, let me just check her socks. Tell her to take off her shoes.
Quita tu zapato.
Ay, ¿de verdad? No, pero no tengo nada. Y mire, ve acá estamos.
You got your camera rolling?
I don't know, entiendo. So, un momento, okay?
Somewhere in the parking lot.
So now this is her, like, actually stealing the shit.
Oh yeah, she said no originally, but
But I digress. Like, these things, like, these people come here, and then they commit crimes, and then they act like, why are you sending me home? Why are you treating me like this? Stop touching me. As if they have any rights here in America. America, the thing about illegals is that illegals then try to hide behind our laws. They break our laws to come here, and then they try to shield themselves from the law on the way out. It's disgusting, and we need to change the law so that we can just expedite these people the fuck out of this country. Now, this is one of the most disgusting things I've seen lately, but this is at an elementary school. This is an elementary school in Minnesota. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, that is not what should be going on in schools and all of that. But this one here, this one here is an old video of Pete Hegseth going after James Talafrico, aka Talarico, the guy who's running in Texas, who said God is non-binary. The guy's a freak, and he's disgusting. But this is back in the day with those two going at it.
Are you okay with voter ID?
So voter ID is currently required in the state of Texas. I opposed having to
How about for mail-in ballots? How about having to send your ballot in? Should you have to prove who you are? Because that's what Democrats are opposing.
Pete, I just said I oppose voter ID. Currently, it's a law in Texas, but I oppose that law because I think you don't need it.
You oppose voter ID? You don't think the most sacred obligation of our republic, you should have to prove who you are in order to vote?
So there are a lot of Texans, actually hundreds of thousands, who don't have a driver's license, who don't drive at all.
Do they have a Social Security number? Because according to this Republican law, you can put your last 4 digits of your Social Security number in as proof of who you are. Did they not? No, help me out. Did those people not have Social Security numbers? And who are these people that can't get IDs?
So, Pete, if you're talking about the bill that we're currently focused on, not past Texas law, what this bill is going to do is not only reduce voting hours, it's also going to empower these partisan poll watchers who are going to look over voters' shoulders and prevent them from exercising their God-given right.
You mean the ones that weren't allowed in certain states at certain times in certain places, whether you agree with that or not? So Texas says maybe we should have partisan poll watchers on either side, Republicans and Democrats, right? It wouldn't just be Republicans.
Do you remember a second ago when I talked about the big lie? This is exactly what I'm talking about. And the reason that so many folks believe in this country is because folks like you get on television,
James,
every night and
said
repeat
you don't
the lie
want
over
voter
and over
ID.
again.
We're not talking about that. You just went on national television and said you don't want voter ID, revealing exactly what Democrats. And it's so condescending to say that people can't get identification. Have you found someone in your district that can't get identification?
You have made a lot of money personally, and you've enriched a lot of corporations with advertising by getting on here and spewing lies and conspiracy theories to folks who trust you. And so what I'm asking you to do is to tell your voters right now that Donald Trump
at least you've resolved the lie that is. At least you've resolved the lie that is. Democrats are now for voter ID. It's not your show, sir. But at least you resolved the idea that Democrats are not for voter ID.
Did Donald Trump lose the election in 2020?
No, he didn't.
Real quick,
can you answer the question? Did Donald Trump lose the election in 2020?
He didn't lose the election in 2020.
Is this
an uncomfortable question for you?
No, it's. My question is, why are you in Washington D.C. and not in Texas when your job is in Texas? Because you know it's inevitable that this bill is going to pass. Eventually, you're going to have to pay your hotel bill and go back to Texas, and Governor Abbott will declare a special session. So you're being used by national Democrats to try to pass H.R. 1 to federalize elections, which you as a Harvard grad should know better, because the Constitution puts that in the hands of state legislators who are supposed to be in their state, and you happen to be in Washington, D.C.
And mic drop. But Talafrico has now said that God is non-binary and all of that. It's freaky that these people even have a platform to speak on. But I wanted to talk about this. Last thing we'll talk about is the E. Jean Carroll case. E. Jean Carroll is now being investigated by the DOJ for lying under oath about the whole rape thing. Actually, this might not work here, but yeah, it does. I guess it's over 18. I'll have to log into that one differently. But Spencer Pratt is running against Karen Bass, and the California election system has been a joke, okay? What we've seen with the mayoral race and the governor race in California is reminiscent of what we saw in 2020. The they're having election month, not an election day. And what they do is essentially, once the Republican people come out and vote, they go and they see how many more votes that they need to win the election and to keep out the Republicans. That's what they do. And Governor Gavin Newsom now signed into law that there doesn't need to be signature verification. I mean, it's like they want to cheat. But this right here is Spencer Pratt, and he is going for mayor because his house burnt down in L.A., and the Democrats, Karen Bass, they're just sucking. Watch this.
The number one question that everybody has for me when they hear my plan is, how can we do that, Spencer? We don't have the money. Let me clue you in on a little secret. We have the money. It's just being stolen. You pay countless tax dollars. You're taxed on your income. You're taxed on your gas. You're taxed on your property. You're taxed out every single expensive transaction you endure is taxed. Yes, hundreds of restaurants have shut their doors thanks to Karen Bass and Nithya Raman. Businesses are fleeing their terrible leadership, so revenue is decreasing. And I will turn that around, for we have plenty of money in this city. It's just being stolen. Our streets are a mess. Every day people pop tires. Their suspension is shot. All because our streets are left in utter neglect and disrepair.
Potholes can cause some pretty costly car repairs.
One pothole damaged as many as 10 cars.
More than a dozen vehicles damaged, many with blown out tires.
Both of my tires on the passenger side just blew out completely.
And the bent of my rim, I think bent my lower control arm.
Resident Francisco Garcia collected these hubcaps, evidence of the overnight damage.
The average cost of a pothole-related car repair is about $600, and it's something 1 in 10 drivers have to deal with.
We have not invested in our infrastructure, and this is the consequences.
These are beyond just potholes that have busted open under the negligence of Karen Bass. These are bass holes. But people ask, how can we fix the bass holes? We don't have the money. We do have the money. It's just being stolen. I met with the truckers who used to do this work for over 100 years for LA, paving our roads until Karen Bass came in.
The city hasn't repaved a single street since last July. They say the city's own debt.
But you get the point. So this guy is out there fighting against everything, the homeless, everything. And he made it to the runoff because nobody got 50% in the election. So they because nobody got 100% in that election, they are they're going to a runoff. But it looks like they're actually trying to fuck him out of that one again, for the main reason being that that they're just waiting for these votes to trickle in, so it'll be a Democrat against a Democrat. It's disgusting. But I digress. We are at the end of our show here this week. I can't thank you enough for coming in and watching the show, the podcast this week. We greatly appreciate you. Have a great one. Thanks so much for watching.